In this first video, I just want to talk about the layout of Blender. Along the top line here, as in most computer programs, you've got File. Click on that, you get a drop down, a new general if we were starting a new project. Then save as, and in other videos I'll talk about the import and export edit. I tend not to go into here. There's undo, redo if you need to be. Render, I don't use Windows, tend not to use help. And then there are a number of tabs here that is just the layout, so we're in layout at the moment. And then there's a modeling mode is where you can actually start pulling the points around to change the shape. Sculpting is a different way of working. We can look at that in another video, and then there is a number of other layouts that I tend not to use. But the main thing is with this is you can see that the sort of layout can be customized for whatever job you're doing, and we just want to do 3D modeling, so this is your best. The layout and the modeling view is what we tend to use, and it's made up of a main 3D window here. And actually that's defined top left here, 3D viewpoint. Now there are all sorts, this window could be turned into all sorts of other windows, but we won't get involved in at the moment. This window here is then actually the outliner, so that is a list of objects that is in your 3D window. This window down here is the properties window. It gives you information about whatever you've clicked on. And then along the bottom is a timeline. This program has been developed for doing film animation where they use a timeline. We won't be using timelines. So at the moment we'll just ignore that. So in your 3D window here you've got a box. One difference you might notice is there's a sort of an image of a mouse at the side here. Anyway, I've switched this on, in my software so that we can see what I'm actually doing off screen. So, a left click shows up, a middle click and a right click. And if I press something on my keyboard like X for just delete, you can see the X comes up there. So left click for select, I can select the box, and when that's selected you can see it's highlighted over there, and I can select the camera highlighted, or I can actually work out of here, so I can select the light by clicking on there. Now I actually don't want the light, and we won't use lights and cameras because we won't be doing animation. So for multiple selection, I have the light selected already at the moment. I would hold down the shift button and left click, and then both of those selected, and then X for delete. So if you want to delete anything, X does it. It asks you, are you happy with that? Yeah, delete, and so I delete. So now back to my box. So now I just want to go through kind of the navigation a little bit. Right, so here you can see by holding down the middle mouse, I'm managing to sort of rotate it so I can view my box. I was zooming in and out by rolling the mouse button, didn't show up over there. But anyway, this panning around can also be done by just grabbing on here, right, so where I was, and by moving that around. Now, if I want to actually look at the object from the X direction, I can press on the X, and there it sits. If I wanted to look at it from the other side, it won't look any different, but I can then look at the Y side and the Z side. Okay, and then when you do that, we're looking at Z, so that's from the top. You can see where you are. If I move it slightly, it then becomes the user selection and not the computer. So now we're in a user position. You can also go view, viewpoint, and look at it, say, from the front. Or it says numpad 1, so that's not the numbers along the top of your keyboard, it's the numbers over on the side. If I press 1, then once again I look straight on. I can press 3, and you can see this is turning around. I can press 7, I know that 7 is looking at it from on top. Okay, so zooming in and out, we could also do that with this tool over here. And if I left click on that and move it up and down, that'll also zoom in and out. If I wanted to pan around, all right, so the box, I want the whole sort of viewpoint to move off to the left hand side. Hold down Shift, middle button, and I can move it to there if I had another object here, but I can also do it with the hand, so that moves the whole scene. Okay, we won't be doing any camera work. This here is whether you view it in perspective. So at the moment you can see all the lines are going back into perspective, and it does say that it's in perspective here. Within 3D modeling there's something called orthographic, and that's really useful. So this is orthographic mode at the moment, you can see it there. And now that something that is in the distance would be the same size as something in the foreground here. So actually, in fact, if I just add another cube, you can see we're in orthographic view, straight on orthographic, and a box in the foreground is the same size as the box in the background. But if I swap over to perspective view, you can see it starts to get sort of smaller in perspective. When you're actually drawing, in the 3D world, the orthographic view is better. It's just easier to be able to kind of line things up because they then become the same size. So I tend to work in this view. Right, I think that's the navigation. All right. Then over here you've got your kind of selector, and that's the left click, selector left and right. Then the next one down is cursor. I don't think we'll get involved in that at the moment. At the moment the cursor is right in the middle, but when you're doing more involved modeling, it's important where the cursor is, but we'll cover that when we get there. But then the move button here is useful. So now if once I switch this on, if I go within the white circle, I can then grab and move this object anywhere in the world. All right, remember that over here we were moving the world, but now we're actually moving the object within the world. If you go on the arrow of any one direction, you then move in the direction of the arrow, in the X, Y, Z direction. If I want to undo it all, it's Control Z undoes. Okay, so I've just returned the box to the center where it was. So that's the move button. Now I can also move with a keyboard shortcut. So G for grab, press down the G key and that'll move it. Now if I wanted it only to move in the red direction, I know the red direction is the X direction, so I'd go key G, key X, and then it would only go in the X direction. So that's a shortcut. I tend to work just with my pointer and then use grab, say in the Z direction, up and down. But when you're first sort of setting out, you may well use some of these tools. Okay, my undoing. So that was the move, then the rotate. Again, you get a gizmo in the white area. It'll just move in any direction or rotate in any direction. Let's just undo that. Or if you go on one of the lines, so blue line will rotate only in the vertical in the Z direction or in the Y direction. Let's just undo that. Now, if I do a rotate, so here I've just got my sort of pointer switched on. I can also do a rotate now, R for rotate, but when I rotate, it only rotates in parallel to my screen. Okay, so you can see if I moved around, it's been rotating according to my screen. So if you do any rotates using the keyboard R for rotate, you must work out what plane you are. So here I've pressed that, so I know now that I'm in the Y direction. So if I do a revolve, it'll be in the Y direction. So anyway, what you need to know from here, I guess, is that it's often best to use, if you want to do rotating, use this little tool, because then you know exactly which plane you are rotating in. If you use the shortcut R, you can get into a bit of a mess, because it's all depending where you're looking at the object in the user view. Next tool down is a scale tool. So again, if I'm inside the white, it scales in all directions. If I then press on only the red, it's only in the red direction. And the shortcut for scale is S for scale. Press down the S key and then pull, and it scales in all directions. Or I can constrain that by, if I want it only in the vertical, that's the Z direction, is scale Z, and then pull, and away it goes. Right, I think that's enough for now.